Everyone, and welcome to Nutrition and Healthy Recipes with Jay Villar at Newton Community Farm. I am going to be talking to you all about carrots today. So carrots are a great vegetable that is grown on many farms. We grow specifically the orange carrot here, but there are many other varieties that can be grown, whether they be purple, or they'd be the white carrot. And all of these varying levels of carrots have multiple uses as far as the nutrition goes. So like, for example, more of the orange carrots have more vitamin A or beta-carotene, but more of the red carrots have lycopene, which is a amino acid that's really great when you are trying to manage sort of cancer prevention as well as prostate health. So all vegetables have great many properties for us. We're going to be specifically working and talking about our orange carrot here today. So orange carrots can be grown throughout the season. We grow it for a harvest both in the early part of the season as well as the later part of the season. So when we do our crop planning, we know when we're going to be germinating, when we're begin harvesting, and then repeating that process again. So a lot of farms will grow carrots in the later part of the season simply because it is a root crop. So when the weather does turn cold, the carrot does able to continue to grow and stay safe in the ground until it's ready to be harvested. And then when it is harvested, obviously we're going to see some great, beautiful green stems from the carrot that's going to be used. But in order to store the carrots for a long period of time, you're going to want to cut those greens off and then let the carrots dry, wash it, and let the carrots air dry on the counter. And then once it's air dried, you want to put it into its own reusable plastic bag in the fridge, and that's where you could maintain the crispness of the carrot, which you can have at Christmas. And if you don't end up doing that, then I'm sure we're all very familiar with the carrots that get very sort of slimy and very soggy and loose when it's just exposed to that frigid, kind of cold, circulating air in the fridge. So let them air dry on the counter and then put them into its own plastic bag in the fridge, and you'll have your carrots stored much more longer. Today, we're going to be talking about and demonstrating two recipes. One is a side dish recipe, and another is a fermentation recipe. So this is for examples of whether you want to cook your carrots right away for a delicious side dish, and then the other idea for your cooking carrot pleasure is whether you want to ferment your carrots so it actually stays longer in a reusable process form on your counter. And we'll talk about what fermentation and probiotics are along the way. So without further ado, we're going to jump into our recipe here. So I'm going to be demonstrating to you all how to make honey garlic roasted carrots. So the best thing to do when you're cooking and you want to be as time efficient as you possibly can is to just make sure that your tools and your instruments and what you're going to be using for your dish is readily available. So a lot of the hard work of sort of chopping and processing is already done up front, and all you need to do is really kind of go through the recipe. So we're going to be working with our carrots here that turned into chopped carrots. We have some great garlic that we also have grown here from the farm. We have some honey that we have from the store, and we have some butter, salt, pepper, and then we're going to be topping our dish off with some parsley later. So very simple ingredients, nothing too complicated. And what we're going to be doing is just really blending and melding a lot of these flavors together, both on the stovetop as well as the oven. So the first step is to turn on your stove, whether it be gas or electric, and you want to get your pan to be smoking hot. And the first thing we're going to do is just going to be melting our butter into our pan. So we're using about 5 tablespoons of butter, and we're just going to let that butter nicely melt into the pan. And this is where all of that yummy flavor and healthy fats are going to be coming in. Now, the great thing about sort of carrots, I think I mentioned a little bit, is that so carrots have great nutrition to it. On its own, it has vitamins A, C, K, and the vitamin A, which is known for the eyes, is kind of what carrots nutrition has kind of made carrots famous for, right? So, you know, carrots, vitamin A for the eyes, which is all very true, and the nutrient there is called beta-carotene. So, as kind of carrots kind of get their names with nutrition. But vitamin A comes in 2 forms. It comes in a nutrient, which is beta-carotene, but it also comes into a fat nutrient, which is retinol. And that is found in healthy fats like butter. So when you actually cook carrots with its counterpart, as is with the butter's nutrients, you actually get more absorption of those nutrients together than if you were just having it on your own, which is another conversation about diversity within our own health and why we need the array of nutrients available in nature in order for us to make us healthy. So we have our butter going here. We have a nice kind of sauce that's easily being created. Very, very yummy. And all we're going to be doing for the next 2 to 3 minutes is really adding in our garlic. And what we're looking for our garlic is we're not looking to burn it. We just want to kind of release that garlic flavor. And garlic does not take a very long time to cook. So a big mistake that I see a lot of home cooks make is when they are slicing up, you know, onions and garlic together, or peppers, that they kind of put it all in together, which isn't necessarily recommended, simply because the onions take more of a longer time to cook, and obviously we're not cooking with onions, but the garlic doesn't take that much to cook, and when you really meld in your garlic too soon, you're going to be really losing a lot of that taste and that flavor and that nutrients absorption if you overcook your garlic. So all we're going to be really doing is just kind of adding in our garlic here and just letting it meld together with the butter. And once I see that the garlic is turning just ever so brown, I'm going to be thinking about turning it off very soon. And while this garlic is being cooked in this delicious butter sauce, I had to make sure that our oven is set for 425, because the next thing that we're actually going to be doing with cooking the carrots and the butter and the garlic all together is going to be putting it in the oven. That's where a lot of the flavors are then going to be roasted in. Okay, so here we go. We have a bunch of the garlic that's being melted in, and all I'm going to be doing is just turning off the stovetop here, and then I'm going to be adding in our 2 tablespoons of honey. So let's just kind of slowly see the process in. Let's get a little spoon help and get that going. Yum, yum, yum. And I want to turn the heat off because I'm not looking to really kind of cook the honey. I'm just looking to make this emulsified, which means just really like blend it in all together with the garlic and honey. So just take your whisk here and really kind of get it all in. So you're kind of creating that like brown honey sauce. So this is kind of great, right? We have this kind of brownish color with the with the garlic all together. And I already have my carrots all cooked up and I have it in the bowl. So what I'm gonna be doing is simply adding in the honey to the bowl. We're gonna be salt and pepper to taste. A little salt. And then I'm just gonna use my hands here and kind of get it all mixed in. Great. So you just wanna make sure that all of that yumminess is going to be put together, and we take it into our baking tray, even it all out, and that's what it's going to look like when we put it into the oven. So we're going to put this into the oven, and while we're putting this in the oven, I'm going to be showing you a little bit about how to use some of those carrots that you want to ferment. Okay, so now that our carrots are in the oven, I may have said that I cooked the carrots, but I actually meant to say I cut the carrots before they were being cooked now. So just a point of clarification. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to be putting all of the recipes online. So if you go to Newton Community Farm and check out our carrots blog, you'll see the recipes for the roasted carrots, and I'll add the recipe for the fermented carrots on there as well. So speaking of fermented carrots, so let's say you have all of these carrots and you don't want to cook them all and you're not ready to eat them just yet. What are you going to do with them? So an idea that you can do is you can ferment them. So you could really ferment kind of mainly many products of produce, and carrots are no different. And what you're going to be needing in order to ferment it are some simple tools. You're going to need a fermenting jar that you would potentially put your carrots in. You're going to need some salt. You're going to need some water. And you're going to need some sort of starter. And we'll talk about this starter here in a minute if you don't have it. And then obviously you'll need the carrots that you're going to be fermenting. So this is a non-heat exercise. So we're just going to kind of talk through what we're going to be doing, why we're going to be doing it, and what this is going to look like. So what are we going to be doing is we're going to be turning these carrots and using the process of fermentation in order for the good bacteria to then turn that into a fermented food. Now, a fermented food or probiotic is anything that has went through the stage where you added the salt, you added the water, you added the thyme, and you added air in order for it then to turn into something else. So cabbage fermented turns into sauerkraut. So this is an old sauerkraut dish that I made earlier this year, and it's still good. Like fermentations really make the food preserve for a very long time. And simply using your nose, your sight to see if you see any mold, if it's super functified, if it's sort of soured, you can kind of really tell right away if it's good or not. And the judgment always is if you are not sure and you think that it has turned bad, then just throw it away. You don't want to kind of get yourself sick. But typically you can kind of tell if your fermentation is still good. I've had this fermented outside, and then I had it in the fridge for a long time. And the reason why I keep some of this fermentation is because once you ferment something, then you have your own sort of starter juice. So this fermentation is kind of the water, the salt, that will then activate faster the fermentation for anything that you're going to be following up on. So I can add this fermentation juice to our carrot recipe, and the fermentation process will just take much more quicker. If you do not have the fermentation juice in your recipe, don't worry about it. It's just going to take a little bit longer on the counter in order for nature to do its course, and then the fermentation process will just happen naturally. So what we're going to be doing is then working with our carrots and our juice, our salt, and then our water, and creating our own fermented carrots. So all you're going to be doing is taking your carrot and taking your grater, and then simply grate the carrot enough where then you are able to shred it into these little tiny pieces. So obviously you'll need a little grater, a shredder, and then when you have enough for your recipe, so this is 2 cups of grated carrot. It's already there. I'm simply going to put that aside, and I'm going to first use my bowl to create the fermentation starter. So this is, I need 1 tablespoon, so I don't need a lot, in my 2 cups of my starter. I'm going to need 1 ounce of water, and I'm going to need 1 tablespoon of salt. Great. And all I'm doing here is simply just making sure that the salt dissolves. So once I kind of see here visually that the salt has been dissolved in the fermentation starter, as well as the water, then I'm ready for my carrots. So then I take the carrots and I put it into the bowl. And all I'm looking to do is just really kind of get all the juices going. I'm squeezing because I'm also looking at releasing the water from the carrot and moisture to add to the juice that's going to be used in the fermentation process. So as many vegetables, carrots have a high water content, and when you release those barriers, that fiber is able to then turn into something new, whether it be sort of cooking with it or fermenting with it. So as you can see, just squeezing it, we're getting a lot more of that water in there. Oops. And I'm simply going to take my little mason jar. I'm going to stuff it in. And obviously if you have a lot of carrots and you have a lot of juice, you can add in as much as you need, or you make as much as you want. And as I put it in, what I'm really looking to do is pack this in so tight that the carrots kind of stay in on its own, as well as the fermentation juice and the water that we add, as well as the liquid that came from the carrot kind of floats above. So we have here, that's where the carrot is, and then here we have our fermentation juice. Now, there's two methods of fermentation that you can choose. You can choose to seal it naturally and then put this onto the counter, and that's pretty much done. And then every 2 to 3 days, you're simply going to burp it. So these acids inside of here are eventually going to start to ferment and build up gas. And if it builds up too much gas, then it's going to pretty much explode if you aren't careful. So you want to burp it. So burping it pretty much means that you take it off of the lid and you say burp 2 to 3 days, and then you close back up again, and then you just continue on the fermentation process. So after 2 or 3 days, this is pretty much ready to go. The more sour you want it, the more longer that you're going to want to keep it fermenting. The other method is if you don't want to burp it, then you can simply take a paper towel and then cover it with a rubber band and then leave it on the counter as well, just so it's covered, but it's still be able to breathe. So if you're not thinking about burping your food in a couple days, then you want to use a paper towel, that's okay too. We're going to use the seal, and I'm going to make sure to burp it. So we're going to check on our roasted honey and garlic dish in the oven and see how it looks. All right, now that our honey roasted carrots have finished baking in the oven, we're going to take them out. So everything has been kind of crystallized and glazed and all roasted up. So now our last little bit is we take what we got, so let's just kind of give you a little example of what it looks like, and then top it off with a little bit of parsley. So this would be great for a little side dish, or you can just have this as a little snack on its own. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. See you next week for nutrition and healthy recipes with Jay.